Okay, well, hi everyone. We are here with Jeff Toister. A little bit about Jeff before we start. He's a best-selling author, and he's written 3 books on customer service, including the Service Culture Handbook, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. Has been named in the top 50 customer service blogs on the planet. He's also recognized as a top customer service thought leader by ICMI Global Gurus and Com 100. And thousands of people from all over the world subscribe to his service tip of the week email, which is pretty awesome. You should sign up for that if you haven't already. And also, he's known for some training videos that he has created, and you can find those on LinkedIn and LinkedIn's LinkedIn Learning. His sessions are on there. You should look for those. Those are really good too. So I'm going to start with my first question. Jeff, many businesses face a challenge when it comes to getting employees to genuinely care about their customers. And why do you think it's so hard to get employees to care about customers? Why do you think people struggle with that?
So I'm going to share something I think is a little counterintuitive. I think that employees really do care. They care more than we think. They don't care like a business owner would care. Right. And so sometimes that's misinterpreted as not caring. If I own a small business, I care a lot. It's my identity, but employees still care. However, they face a lot of challenges that really diminish their motivation. And examples of that would be business owner or leadership doesn't really share what the vision is, what great service should look like. They assume because they see it, everyone else should know it. Employees don't have the resources that they need to provide great service. They feel like they're stretched thin or underappreciated, and all of those diminish motivation. So I think that the challenge is really, it's not that they don't care. If you hire the right person, they're going to care, but we need to make it easy for them to continue caring and make it easy for them to understand what good service should look like.
Right, that makes sense. So how do you think that we can get them to care? As like a side note, do you think it has to do with maybe getting them to take like pride in their work and giving them feedback, or?
It does. Well, so we were just before we started the live portion of the interview, you and I were talking about college football, right? And how fun college football is. And think of a football team or baseball team or any kind of sports team, and ask yourself, are they motivated because they're winning, or are they winning because they're motivated? And I think that same question applies to employees in a customer service environment. Do they provide better customer service because they're motivated, or do they get motivated when they're able to provide better customer service? The answer is probably a little bit of both, right? If we can make it really clear what the objective is and what great service should look like, and we make it really easy for employees to deliver that, people feel pumped up. I've talked to thousands and thousands of customer service professionals. They want to help. They deeply care about doing a great job. What frustrates them is when they feel like they can't help. And then after a while, there's something called learned helplessness, where I feel like it doesn't matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, I'm not going to create a good result. So I'm just going to stop trying. And that's, I think, when, if I'm a business owner, I say, oh, this employee doesn't care. It may not be that they don't care. It's that they're so demotivated from trying that they're not going to try anymore.
Right. That makes sense. So in your book, you talk a lot about the 3 steps to getting employees obsessed with customer service, the 3 steps that it takes. What are those 3 steps, if you could sum them up for our audience?
And this ties in really nicely to this whole idea of how do we get employees to care. So the very first step 1, is we need a vision. And a vision is simply a shared definition of outstanding service or an outstanding experience that gets everyone on the same page. So if I'm a business leader or a business owner, I can't assume that my employees will understand service the same way I do. So I need to articulate that in a way that everybody is on the same page and gets it. The second step is to engage employees. And employee engagement is a big topic. Yet I had a conversation just today with a leader and asked the question, what does employee engagement mean to you? And if you think about it, a lot of people go, well, I don't know, or, well, our vendor does a survey, or, well, it means, it means something, but we don't all agree on what it means. So this is what I think it means. An engaged employee understands the vision, so they know what makes the organization successful.
Right.
They're committed to helping achieve it. So if they know this is what we're trying to do, and here's how I can contribute, then that employee is by definition engaged. So we need to make it very clear that they understand the vision and know how they contribute. So that's the second step. The third step, and this one's critical, we need alignment. In other words, we need to make sure that everything we're doing is aligned with that vision, so it's easy for employees to provide outstanding service. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I talked to a customer service professional, and she said to me that she was very frustrated because she was given, in her words, 6 minutes to solve a customer's problem. In other words, a customer call in, she had 6 minutes to get that call done. And she said, sometimes, in fact, often, that's not enough time to make them feel better. I just have to tell them what to do. And so the idea of great service is in direct conflict or misalignment with the idea that we have to get it done in 6 minutes. And this is counterintuitive, but I've done my own research and worked with other contact centers when they've taken that handle time away, for example, and said, just focus on getting the customer's needs met. The call doesn't get any longer. In fact, sometimes it even shortens, which is very counterintuitive, but the service quality goes up. So that would be an example of misalignment. I'll give you another example, and this is from my own experience as a customer service leader in a small business. We sold, the company I work for sold collectibles. So the people we were talking to really wanted to find details about the items we were selling.
Right.
Yet we were paying bottom barrel salary, the low end of the salary scale. So we had no hope of attracting the best and the brightest employees. They could easily get paid more to do the same job somewhere else.
Right.
So if I want someone who's super detailed and super focused and super into the product, I'm paying as low as I could possibly pay. There's no way. I mean, that's an alignment conflict, right? I'm going to have to raise the salary to attract better quality people if I want to provide that type of service. So
Right.
Alignment there is critical.
Definitely. That definitely makes sense. It has to match up. You get what you pay for, I guess.
You definitely do. And again, counterintuitive. I worked with another small business and they had the same problem. And the owner of this business was paying his employees too low, yet they weren't providing the level of service he wanted. And so I showed him where his starting salary was, or starting wage was on the salary scale, how bad it was. And I said, let's just increase it a little bit. It doesn't even have to be top of the line, just a little bit. As soon as he did that, he was able to attract a new employee that was at a far different caliber than ever before. And the cool thing about this business is a lot of their customer service inquiries had the opportunity to turn them into sales. And with this new employee, she was able to increase sales from customer service inquiries at such a level that it far and away paid for the salary increase and then some. So it even exceeded the owner's expectations. But it was counterintuitive. If I spend more on a better employee, I'm actually going to make more money versus saving money. That's counterintuitive, but often that's what happens.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. That definitely makes sense. So as a trainer, what is typically the biggest challenge you see businesses face when you're trying to implement these 3 steps that we just talked about? And how do they typically overcome that challenge?
I think the biggest challenge is commitment. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like for most businesses versus the few that really succeed. There is a really nice lake near my house, and this lake has this path around it, a lane in each direction for running, jogging, walking, bicycling, etc. And every January, that path is absolutely choked with people. Why? Because it's the new year, and this is the year that I'm finally going to go out and do it. I've got my new running shoes, my new outfit, And it's great. So that's, I think, a metaphor for businesses that are trying to become customer focused. We
Right.
hold a training class or a pep rally, and we're like, yay, we hire a speaker like me or somebody. But here's the difference between the many and the few. Come February, most of those people, 90% of those people are gone. They
Right.
gave up. They stopped. It was too much work. It wasn't that they didn't know what to do. It was that doing it relentlessly every day was hard.
A lot of effort.
And that's what separates, I think, the businesses that do it well from the businesses that don't. I hear from a lot of organizations, and they'll say, I've got a staff of 15 people and I want to do, a half day of training. Great. Then what? What do you do after that half day? Because that's one event. What happens afterwards, a month later, 2 months later, 6 months later, if you're not still relentlessly focusing on service and experience 6 months later and reinforcing those same messages, then it's going to fade. And in fact, most leaders have told me, if I send my people to one class, I might get a week or two of improved performance, like the people at the lake that I see.
Yeah.
But then we quickly go back to our bad habits. So it's the commitment more than anything else that really separates the few from the many.
Right. That makes sense. It's hard to do that, I'm sure, but it pays off in the end. So, in your experience, what kind of impact does getting your employees obsessed with customer service have on the customer experience?
So I think we'd all like to say it's, in a way, it's self-evident, right? Better experience equals better loyalty equals better profits. I could think of an example. There's a plumbing company that I've used in town. I'm in San Diego, and so this company is called Ideal Plumbing. And actually, Ideal Plumbing, heating, air, and electrical. So they provide a number of services.
Right.
You wouldn't think of it as a plumbing company is kind of the star of service, but they really do. And so I can speak through the lens of that example. Not only do they provide great service, but it's consistent. So they provide a lot of different services, and it doesn't matter who's come out to my house, whether it's an electrician, a plumber, an HVAC specialist. They've always been polite, friendly. They do great work. They also look for other opportunities to serve. So that's a very consistent thing. And so what happens when you get that consistently excellent service, the next time something goes wrong, I don't shop around for an electrician or get 3 bids or, find, a recommendation for, I just call this company. That's all I do because I know they're going to take care of me. And so when you're able to provide that consistent level of experience to your customers, that builds habits, that builds loyalty. And I think businesses gain a few very tangible benefits. They certainly gain, the repeat business, which is what we want. And we should be tracking. The second thing that they gain, though, is they gain more incremental revenue. In other words, I'm a loyal plumbing customer. That's how I started out. But because of the great plumbing service, I felt more confident using their electricians or their HVAC specialist. They also do remodeling. So I've done several remodeling projects with them, more revenue. And the third thing is when you provide consistently excellent service, you spend a lot less money solving problems. So your servicing costs go way down. And so all of those things end up benefiting the business, and they come from creating this consistently excellent experience.
Awesome. That's awesome. That was a good answer. So if a business is successful in getting their employees obsessed with customer service, like using the steps you just talked about, and they reach that point, they'll most likely grow and gain a larger following or have more loyal customers that want to stick around and use them again. How can a business maintain a customer focus as they grow once they start to experience that growth?
I hear about that challenge a lot, that growth makes it really difficult. Hey, if I have 5 people, we can talk to each other, monitor each other, but now it's 50 or even 500. What do you do? It comes back to that commitment and that relentless focus and making sure that you're never too big to focus on the basics of what makes your organization uniquely successful. So a few examples of what that looks like. I was talking to a company just today where, they've gone through a lot of growth from a very tiny organization to a much bigger one. Yet the CEO still has, on a monthly basis, either the CEO or another senior executive will get in front of the entire company. It's so big now, they have to have multiple sessions, but they'll get in front of the entire company and they'll talk about culture and they'll talk about service. I know another company that I've worked with where the same thing is that the CEO, they do quarterly town halls. The CEO will talk about culture every town hall, but he'll also talk about culture in every executive meeting, in every one-on-one with employees, even at lunch, when he's just casually having lunch with employees, he'll talk about culture. And I know this not only from working with this organization, but I was originally hired to do some training. And the first thing that I was told is, you need to talk about our culture in your training. So every single thing that they do is an opportunity to reinforce the culture. And as your organization grows, you have to do that if you want to keep everybody on the same page. As you point out, it's not easy. But you have to be very deliberate about making sure your culture is something that's frequently repeated.
Awesome. That was a good answer as well. I wouldn't have thought of that myself, to keep focused on the culture, but that makes sense when you think about it.
The tough part about that, though, is that if you keep repeating the same message, people will stop listening to it. So you have to talk about culture, but find different and unique ways to address it or bring it up so that you don't say the same thing every time, because then people, they won't hear it. And that's not easy.
Right. No, that makes sense though, so they don't lose interest. So you've included your service culture toolkit as a resource for us to hand out to the audience, which we're going to be doing a follow-up email on Monday. So all the people that have logged on today and signed in, and we're going to send them resources that the speakers provided us with. But in that toolkit, if there's one key takeaway that a reader leaves with after reviewing your toolkit, what would you want that takeaway to be? And I know that's a compliment to your actual service culture handbook book, which I actually have here, so I recommend getting this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
It's a really good book. So if they could take one key takeaway from those two things, what do you think that you would want that to be?
I actually address this in the book. I have a friend who's a baker, and something that she shared with me is that even the smallest detail can change the result. So, for example, I'm a very good friend of hers in that I'm willing to test her creations and let her know if they're good or not. Anytime she bakes something, I'm there for her because I'm a giver. Right? But one of the things, for example, that I've learned is that if she's making cookies and she uses butter that's cold from the refrigerator, or she uses butter that she's allowed to warm up to room temperature, that's a very tiny difference, but I can taste the difference in those cookies. And I think service culture is the same way. When I hear from customer service, customer experience leaders, business leaders, there's often this impatience where I want to jump around and pick and choose which solutions I implement and which solutions I don't. And I can tell you from talking to hundreds and probably thousands of service leaders and business owners, that approach simply doesn't work. You don't get the same results when you pick and choose. So the advice I would give, the toolkit is actually arranged in chronological order from step 1, step 2, etc. Follow each step, follow it precisely. And when you do that, you're going to get the result you're looking for. If you deviate, then you're going to get something different, and it may not be that service culture that you're trying to achieve.
Right, that makes sense. As a side note, I have to ask, which one tastes better? The room temperature butter or the cold butter?
Oh, clearly warming up to room temperature, that extra level of care and attention. You taste more of the butter when that happens. It's a small detail, but it's
I can believe that. That's interesting. Just I was listening to that part and I had to know. So now I know for when I make cookies at home. I know what to do.
That's the secret.
That's awesome. We learned a little bit about baking. We learned a little bit about customer experience and customer service. Look at all the awesome stuff we're learning.
That's right.
So right now we're going to open up if anybody has questions. We're going to answer those, but if not, I do also have some additional questions that I'm going to ask if we don't have any. Do we have anything, Natalia? Okay. I just have a couple more for you.
Sure.
If that's all right. Of all the companies you've helped create a customer focused culture and helped with employee training, do you have a favorite success story or like a success story that stands out in your mind?
Like which kid is your favorite, right?
Yeah. I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but maybe you could just talk about one of your favorites.
Well, so my plumber ideal is they became a client of mine,
Oh,
um,
okay.
and that was fun because I was able to see what they were already doing really well, and kind of see behind the scenes and some of the things that they did. So because it affects me personally, that was really fun. I can give you a couple more examples. I worked with an organization called Clio. What
Okay.
Clio does is they they provide legal practice management software. So if you're a lawyer, you've probably heard of them, and if you're not a lawyer, you'll never know who they are.
Okay.
But what impressed me with them is that that example I gave you earlier of kind of the recipe and following the steps. The service leader that I work with, it was a startup company, so she's wearing many hats, she's working long hours, incredible amounts of stress, is trying to grow this company. Yet she was laser focused on, I'm going to do one thing at a time. I'm going to do it really, really well. And once we've perfected that, we'll move on to the next step. And I see so many other leaders trying to do 12 things at once that all go badly, rather than one thing really well. And they were awarded a few years ago best contact center culture by ICMI. So it was a happy thing for me to see that pay off.
Oh, definitely.
One more example. It was just a treat for me. I didn't really do much with this engagement. In San Diego, where I live, the #1 rated tourist attraction is the USS Midway. And for people who might be tuning in, thinking about going to San Diego, it's a retired aircraft carrier that's become a museum, and you can tour the entire aircraft carrier. There's volunteers who tell you exactly what it's like to serve on board. And I was hired to help them clarify their customer service vision. What should it be? And I was so impressed because the goal was to write like a new vision statement. And what we found going through the process is that people, whether it was employees or volunteers, had an incredible connection to the mission. And so we came away from this process saying, we don't need something new. It's their mission. And the mission is to help kind of preserve the history and the legacy, I'm paraphrasing, but also help educate the public on what it's like to serve, and particularly on board the USS Midway. And that's what they come to do every day. So it felt good for me, even though I didn't do a lot in that engagement, to be a part of something where the culture was so powerful. So I gave you 3 examples, and I've left out way too many examples because there's so many great organizations, and I'm probably making someone mad right now.
No one be jealous. No one be jealous.
That's
we're on time. We're on a timetable, so don't be jealous. I'm sure.
That's it. Yeah. If I had more time, I'd.
I'm gonna ask you one more, if that's all right with you. So have you ever had a customer experience personally that left an impact on you? And that would probably be the plumbing one that you talked about.
That would be you mean a good impact, right?
What'd you say?
You mean a good impact?
Oh, yeah, good. Or if you have a negative one, we could talk about that too.
The negative, the negative ones.
Talk about why it was negative.
our brains naturally focus on the negative. It has a much bigger impact. And if I were advising an organization, I'd say you'd be better off avoiding service failures than trying really hard to deliver like a wow experience, because the negatives are more powerful. But I'll give you, one more. This is not really a smaller business, but a company that I love to do business with, and that's REI. And for people that aren't familiar, REI is they sell outdoor equipment, hiking, backpacking. The shirt I'm wearing, I bought at REI. I love being outdoors. And what's cool about it is their vision is we want to help you enjoy the outdoors. And every time I do business with them, whether I shop at a retail store, go online, contact customer support, it doesn't matter. I have a consistently excellent experience. And that consistency is key. And the experience also reflects the vision. I'm speaking with someone who enjoys the outdoors themselves and wants to take the time to help me get more fun outdoors as well. And that's something that's always stood out for me, and why I get kind of excited when I think about doing business with REI.
That's awesome. It sounds like they must hire people that have a passion and for the outdoors and a similar attitude and personality that kind of like falls in line with what they do.
They absolutely do, and in a passion that's deep. For example, a year ago, I was planning this really big hike, so I went to REI to get some more equipment, of course. And when I told the sales associate what I was doing, not only did they know what equipment I needed, they knew what hike I was going on. And they said, "Oh, you're going on the Cactus to Clouds hike. Oh, here's what I like about it." And so, I mean, that's really deep passion and
That
commitment.
is.
That's a different level of service than, oh, that section is over there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely a great example. So we're probably going to wrap it up with Jeff's session right now, but I just want to thank you, Jeff, so much for taking the time out of your day today. I know that you're busy, and we just truly appreciate you coming on and talking a little bit about what people can do to improve their customer service and their customer experience. Like I said before, Jeff's been kind enough to provide us with the service culture toolkit that we're going to be sharing with you guys in a follow-up email. And like I said before, that's an accompaniment to his book, The Service Culture Handbook, which is a great book. I suggest you pick it up. And I just want to thank you again so much. We really appreciate it. It was enjoyable to have you on for this session and to get to meet you in person.
No, it's been my pleasure. I really appreciate you having me and all that you and the rest of the crew at LiveHelpNow are doing to put on this summit. It's a big day, so thanks for having me be a part of it.
Thank you so much. We had a great time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.